We're back with Ryan Grant. How are you, Ryan?
Hello, Tom. Thanks for having me on the show again.
This is a good one. We're talking about documents and data ownership and the protection of that stuff for strata corporations. And you can't stress enough how important the continuity is in an environment where strata directors are coming and going all the time.
Exactly.
You have been active in the strata space for years. As those followers of you know, you're listed, of course, as the founder of Property Flute here, but you've also run BC Strata Tech.
Yes. Yeah, we do a
So,
lot of involvement with that, have our own community base that reaches out to us from time to time, and they love seeing all the new kind of stuff that's going on, tech in the industry here.
and you're doing something new. So,
Yeah.
lead us off here, Ryan. What is taking back the keys, and why does this matter for strata corporations?
Well, what I've noticed in the industry and in the communities, because we follow a lot of the stuff on community forums and Facebook groups and all these things. We're quite active in the communities, and we see time and time again. There's people talking about how they go from one management company to another, and sometimes they lose some data. Right? There's definitely obligations that the companies need to adhere to, but they still lose some stuff. Right? Sometimes emails aren't going to be transferred across all, and some files will inherently just get misplaced, right? Doing a jump from company to company can cause these stratas to lose some information and or just have to go and try and really find all this stuff again. So it's
And a
a
lot of
pain
it
point for them.
is also affecting the self-managed communities because whether they're
Yes,
having their documents hosted on somebody's machine or on a
yes.
Dropbox, there is always the potential for things to change and for those sources to become unavailable.
Exactly, and that's basically what I was going to say. Is that the self-managed people they have it even worse in some ways because when somebody leaves the strata that's very passionate, some council member that's been there a long time, they may end up not handing off everything to a new owner. Right? There might not be somebody to hand it off to, and that's where they can really fall through the cracks, right? Because the new people as well, in a self-managed strata, they may not understand how best to operate the strata, right? They don't have as many resources that they're going to. Unlike a managed strata, will have a strata manager, and that manager typically does quite a few things that the council doesn't have to think about, right? And there's
True.
always active members in both styles of communities.
So this is for stratas of all sizes.
Exactly, right. We've seen it from the small ones to the big ones. Obviously, the smaller ones are going to fall into the problems more often, right? Because they just don't have the resources available to them typically, and they just don't know what they don't know, right? So they're sometimes not storing some documents that they need to be storing, right, long term, according to the Strat Property Act, right? They don't understand the retention policies, but yeah, the bigger ones definitely fall into this, and maybe more often than people would think. Right? They might be surprised.
Things do fall through the cracks. In fact, when we were founding the company, my co-founder Jamie lived in a community that was undertaking a renovation project. They had to
Oh,
remove and reinstall balconies, and the original engineering drawings were no longer available. Guess what? They had to have new stuff put into code, and it added to their special assessment. So
ex-
nobody loves a big special levy. We want to make sure that you got your documents on hand. So,
yes.
you're gonna walk us through the way it was and the way it could be?
Exactly, and how not necessarily just the way it was, but just how people in general may be doing it still today, right? Like there's many options available, but as I call them, more traditional operational methods, right? And those are fine, but again, you're going to have more chances to lose information following those traditional methods, right? Because it takes people that are active to be able to ensure that they've got everything again, right?
Absolutely, and we'll talk a bit more about why it matters, but,
Yeah.
yeah, get into it, Ryan. Where are we here?
Yeah, so many people don't know what the landscape looks like in BC, but here we are with roughly 36,000 strata corporations. I know in 2024, I think it was 34,500, and since then there has been some growth, so it's roughly around 36,000. That's 800,000 plus strata lots throughout BC that exist, and we estimate it's around 1 in 4, maybe 1 in 3 at best, are managed stratas, while the rest are self-managed. And as we can see here, the strata sized 2 strata lots to 15 strata lots, they're pretty much the bulk of it, right? So they are kind of the most vulnerable in the sense where they can't probably pay for a strata manager, right? It's probably outside of the range of what they can afford. It's just not economical for a strata of that size typically to have the full breadth of services that a manager can provide. Sometimes they'll do ad hoc hybrid solutions, right? They can afford to pay for certain things, but in general, yeah, they're the most vulnerable and they're the biggest group in BC. And that's what we are personally trying to tackle, is ensuring that they don't get left out with things that we provide.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you've got nearly 25,000 units listed there, the strata corporations. But if
Yes.
you take an assumption on the number of units, it's going to be less than 200,000.
Yeah.
So it is only 20-ish% of the
Of them.
total number of strata units, but it
Yes.
looks like it's huge. And I've
Yes.
had this discussion with some other players in the industry as well, because it is really a minority
Yes.
of strata owners, even though it is a large number of stratas.
Of stratas. Yes.
And they have unique challenges. They obviously don't have that management. They need
Yes.
more volunteer involvement from their owners. Um, there are lots of challenges that affect that group.
No, exactly, right. And that's they're just not going to be able to afford and be aware of all those things typically, right? It takes a lot more work for them to get to the same level as the other stratas that are larger. And then this one,
Interesting,
yeah,
Ryan.
again, these are the perceptions, right? That we've kind of noticed. So again, duplexes aren't stratas, is what many people out there believe. I have people in my family that had previously bought duplexes, and then they didn't know the entire time that they owned it that it was even a strata until the very end when they went to sell. And the realtor was asking, "Oh, do you have strata documents and stuff?" And they said, "Well, what's that?" So as you can see, the smaller ones, they're just not in the know to a degree, right? Especially these duplexes.
Yeah, I'm in a weird position. I don't know if you heard this before, Ryan, but I'm in a row of 5, and we are non-strata attached row houses. And
Yes,
so it is an unusual circumstance. There are some across this province.
yes,
But I mean, it's like, well, most people think that we should be a strata, but we're not. The title actually
yes.
says
Yeah,
it's
you have the row home.
yeah, exactly. I actually like
Yeah.
row homes. I'm a big fan. I lived in Europe, in the UK for many years, and I think it's fabulous. But
Yeah, I don't see any issues with it. It's just simply that I've seen that people quite a bit, even realtors, they'll be listing some properties and they won't realize that it's a strata, right? Especially if they're newer. It's interesting to see that people just aren't quite aware of this governing framework that they need to follow, right, to operate their property.
and they, of course, have to follow all of the same rules, even though they don't really fit the mold, and that
Yes.
adds a lot of complexity to them.
Exactly. They have some aspects which are not the same, right? They get a little bit of leeway in some areas, like depreciation reports and stuff are slightly different. But in general, they're pretty much the same for how they need to operate.
And you talk about data sovereignty here in the context of
Yes.
managed communities. Obviously, they've got that professional management. The professional manager has a system or systems in place to take care of all of their clients, and you've hinted on the fact that when there is a transition, there is a handoff process. Can you
Yes.
explain anything further about the data sovereignty there?
Yeah. So again, I've even had it personally where in my own strata where not all documents were always handed off, right? Because um, not every management company is using the same type of software and solutions, and staff are changing over the years. Sometimes staff aren't always storing everything in the proper places, right? Maybe they just have it in their email and they never download it and put it in the proper management company's storage solution, right? Especially if they don't have a front-facing kind of area for council members or owners to be logging in and viewing documents, then they're doing things internally in their own systems, right? And there's less of a stress to be ordering all that, having proper file documentation ordering internally in the company, right? Of course, they still want to do it and have their policies, but they're so busy that these things fall through the cracks, right? Inevitably, right? At some of them, right? And we're not saying all, but definitely some. And the one that that we were with in my own, they definitely had some things that were missing, and the new companies had to try and figure out, where are we going to find this information about the parking stalls, who owns which stall, and all these things, right? Because in our strata is kind of unique where owners are allowed to sell their own parking stalls on the side, right? But they should be notifying the council. So even if you go to the land title office and try and get the original documents, it's outdated. It's outdated information, right? So it's ours is a little unique, and others may be as well, right? Where there's little things, nuances there, where you really need to make sure that the Strata Corporation controls the data as much as possible.
Right, right. Another perception is that managing the documents and the data is easy. I think
Yeah,
that's not always the case. It can seem that way when it's the same person and they've set up the system, but
systems.
yeah,
Exactly, right. So they might have a really good thing in place, um, and then you realize years down the road when they leave that they really held on and had everything, and they may, if you even have their contact info, they may not have it anymore, right? Or may not be around anymore to be able to give it to you. So that's where again you want to make sure that you have something in place that's easy enough to use and is able to transition from either management company or from different council members and owners in general, and stays with the Strata Corporation, one centralized location.
so this last perception about strata management software being for large stratas is something that you've dispelled in your
Yes,
capacity as the BC Stratotech founder, and something that you're addressing now directly. So we'll let you lead into that
exactly.
part.
Sure. Yeah, so there's strata operation workflows again, which are the traditional document management or digital document management techniques that people use, and then management platforms that people are also using these days. And each of them have their own pros and cons, and yeah, we'll go through each of those now.
Perfect.
So the traditional document management method is really the way where you're relying on printed documents most likely, and or scanned documents. Things are stored just on someone's computer. They're not really organizing them in some cloud solution, right? So it's, in a sense, it's a really offline based storage solution, right? They might even be using just a USB stick. Who knows, right? And that's if it's even digitized, right? There's some that really like to keep everything printed documents and store it that way, and they have a location at the strata where they keep all the files, and that, so, ironically, it can actually be one of the best ways to do it, right? Because sometimes in digital systems, if you change platforms or whatever, then you can lose information as you're doing these transitions, right? Migrations. So sometimes it can actually be better that people had all these paper documents, but often it's not as practical, right, to be doing it that way. And if there's a fire, there goes all your stuff, right? Or a
Yeah.
good portion of it, right? Maybe like if you did some digitizing and put it on a USB stick, great. But otherwise, yeah, that's your big risk, right? And or someone taking the files or something. And then email and letter communication, that might be where they kind of get into the digital aspect, right? A little bit, where they're doing communication through email, and they're kind of storing it in the cloud there. But in general, again, they probably are maybe printing off those emails or downloading them locally to their machine potentially too. That was something that maybe is going away these days now, right? As everyone is kind of adopting more cloud email like Gmail and Outlook online, right? So people downloading emails to their machine is not as relevant anymore, but it's still being out there. We've talked to some folks, and they said that's they still have older solutions that they're using in their stratas. And letter communication, right? People that are writing letters. Even my strata will have we have a little box where people can put in letters, right, if they feel like doing that. And that's a good offering, right? People can be anonymous or not anonymous, but just put in complaints or anything in a letter in the common area, and the council can read them. But those may not be getting digitized, right? So that could be another area that you're losing some context and information that could be very helpful potentially, throughout the strata's life if it has some important information on it.
Point.
Spreadsheets, yeah, that's something again people are potentially using, right, to manage the strata. They're using spreadsheets, and again, they may not be saving them in a cloud, or that cloud may not be accessible to everybody. And higher probability of those data sovereignty issues when you kind of look at it all holistically there.
Absolutely.
And then the digital document. So this one's a step up where they're trying to be proactive and think about, having a larger team kind of attitude, right? Where you're sharing documents with other council members, or able to easily share documents with residents, right? And you can set up sharing permissions and things like that. So that is something that's being used quite a bit in the self-managed stratas, especially that we've inquired with. And then personal email accounts. So that's something that's a pro and a con, in the sense that it's easy to set up. So having a personal email account, people don't have to do anything extra, right? They just say, oh, okay, I'm going to do council business, and here's my email. And they don't need to do anything, right? Low effort to set it up. It's already set up. Everyone has an email address, and then they can start getting their council emails or email correspondence with the council. So personal email accounts are heavily used. Sometimes they will have a private council member email account that they set up separately. But again, if that person's not going to be a council member forever, so if they leave the council, what happens to that private email account? Sometimes it's kind of in their name, other times it's generic, and generic ones could be okay, where the council could try to ask them to get the password and keep it and give it to the next member. But again, it's not the best way of doing it, right? There's got to be better ways to doing that handoff and having those emails secured as well, right?
Yeah, and you see me wincing at times because the use of a personal email address inside of Strata Corporation documents is inconsistent with privacy legislation.
Yeah.
Your personal email account is now being used for official Strata Corporation business and becomes contact
Yes.
information. And I take that very seriously because people have talked to me about it.
Yes.
Because we look for contacts and we're looking for the corporate contact. We do not collect personal information. But if someone
Hmm.
is using a personal email for corporation business, then
Then
the two overlap, and that's a very difficult point. So definitely prefer to see a Strata Council number or a generic Strata Council at email
yes.
versus what could be an individual's email. It's
Hmm.
unclear for anyone reading your Strata Corporation minutes if they're in your AGM whether that email account has been set up by you for Strata Business or not.
Yes, that's a very good point, right?
And
It's
neither of them are the optimal solution. So you're
no.
taking us in that direction. So
Yeah,
please carry on.
exactly, right. And this is a medium to high probability of data sovereignty issues when people are doing digital document management. But again, there are those, it's ironic that sometimes the digital methods can be the worst because the printed off documents sometimes can end up saving you too, right? But in general, digital is the way to be going, right? And if you have the proper workflows and policies in place, which brings us to management platforms, right? They're more designed for the property management use case. And sometimes they're designed for the strat property use case, right? We see other companies within BC that are providing tailored software that's more designed for the stratas, right? For BC stratas, not just for generic property management. But typically, they will have some form of ticket solution instead of emails, right? They'll have some ticket system set up where owners can interact. The owners could even like email in to some generic ticket system email, and then that gets put into the ticket system online, and it's stored and verified there. And then when people are replying to the tickets, council members or managers, it'll go through the ticket system flow and get emailed out back to the owner, right, or to whoever contractor, right, whatever it is. But there's some flow and process that helps try to capture and keep data within the platform instead of having things in disparate systems, right? You don't want a separate email system and then a ticket system and then a management platform for other aspects and then an accounting system. If you have the more systems you have, more disparate systems, it just becomes messier and easier to lose things, right? And obviously, you can't always have a management platform that provides everything. Definitely, some of them provide quite a bit, but in general, you want to try and minimize. That area of liability and have more data sovereignty, all within one area if you can.
Makes sense. And obviously, if you've got these systems in place, you've got a lower risk because
Yeah,
they're meant to be more consistent. They're meant to handle the roll off and the joining of new strata council members. They're meant to handle changes of owners. And all of those things contribute to better data sovereignty.
exactly.
Perfect.
And then, yeah, now we lean into what we've been kind of developing. So on the side there, we've been developing our own platform for helping with basic strata operations, right? So it's not meant to be a full-fledged out platform right now. It's really to help tackle basic things that the smaller stratas and the bigger stratas can use and self-manage and manage stratas, right? Sometimes there's some issues with getting management companies to use another platform. Sometimes they're baked into certain products, right, themselves. But we've seen some stratas, some clients of ours that use our other voting services. They actually have their own management platform that's different than what the manager does. It's extra work, right? The council is having to double up on, putting in things into their platform that they want to ensure that they keep, but it helps them ensure that they're tracking everything that they feel they need to track, right?
I think it's a
Obviously, they're
great
going a little
idea.
overboard,
And
but
that backup is a good thing to have. If you've got paper
yeah,
copies of something, having it scanned onto a USB stick and put into your safety deposit box is a way of making sure that you've got that backup. So
exactly.
it makes sense.
And we've seen some others where they said, the management companies say, well, we have this product that we use, but we're willing to just use that one for you, right? They're a big enough client or whatever, and they feel that it's okay to train their manager on the new system. So the manager might be using multiple systems, right? We have seen it. It's not as ideal for the management companies, and some of them are pretty, stuck with staying with their own systems. They don't want their staff having to learn multiple things, but nonetheless, there are some out there, right? And then there's the self-managed people that they get to choose whatever they want to use. So they're not strapped to one solution. They can always choose and switch and do whatever they want, as long as somebody's got the initiative to try it out, right? And so that we're really trying to cater to all of them, but primarily the self-managed. We feel we're priced well enough, and we offer enough features that give them a chance to try out a management solution without having to pay the type of premiums that normal solutions are charging out there, right? We're trying to just streamline the feature set so that it's just enough for what their needs might be to get some pretty good strata operations going. So yeah, we're designed for stratas of all sizes. We do task and resolution tracking, which is like a ticket system. So people can create tasks for either their council members or for the strata manager if they have a strata manager. And if they do have a strata manager, the strata manager can also make tasks for themselves and for other council members or other staff in the company for that particular strata. And then resolution tracking. So when they're trying to work towards building up agendas over the month or months, depending on their council meeting schedule and or AGM or SGM schedules, then we have something called resolution tracking, which allows people to track specific things that they want to bring to the agendas and talk about, right? So blending in tasks and resolutions is basically a ticket system that we've designed that helps streamline things for operations. And then document storage, that's the big one, where they get their sovereignty by using a system that's designed to store documents for stratas, and we help provide other options, easy options for them to be able to retain their data, such as if they don't want to use the platform anymore, we have an easy way to export everything, right? Even the tickets are exportable in PDF format, so that they can take everything from our system and at least download it and be able to go to wherever they want. And retain that information, right? Maybe they're not going to be able to import it easily always into a new system, but at least they
But they've
have
got
it
the
all,
records.
right? They can go through it, and they can use a computer or AI to scan through all the documents to find whatever they need to find. We at least allow them to take it in an easy format that they can use and rely
Excellent.
on, right? So we're not caring about retention for the clients, like trying to keep them, right? We're not trying to trap them in our ecosystem. We want to make it easy for them to just jump in, try it, see if they like it. If they like it, make it affordable for them. And then if they want to try something else, that's fine. They can export everything. So there's very little to reason to not try to use a system if they're not using one right now, right?
Right. Yeah.
And document signing, we have some fun things like that where they can sign documents built in, so they have to pay for some other thing like DocuSign or whatever, right? We make an easy to use signing system where council members can sign documents, and they can upload new documents, and even an agenda builder. So when they go to run their council meeting or their AGM or SGM, we have an agenda builder that we've been building out that makes it easy to bring in all those tasks and resolutions into an agenda and be able to run your meetings with that, right? To have that
Cool.
pre-made and help you kind of tailor that, right? Sometimes tracking all those things to put on your agenda, you might forget something, and we've experienced that ourselves. Just with self-managed companies and also with managed stratas. My own strata, even, right? Trying to put together the council meetings. Sometimes there's things that were forgotten, right? The manager, forgets to add it in, and it's good that this platform allows the council members to also see what is available to be able to be put on the agenda. They can make suggestions, right? It's a very collaborative approach that we've tried to build out.
And it's really affordable for those lots,
Yeah.
15 lots or less. I mean, you're talking as little as a few dollars per year
Yes.
for these capabilities, which is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. We're trying to make it like we don't know how many of the smaller ones really jump on. We actually have some clients from our voting side of the business that are smaller stratas like that, and they did show some interest when we mentioned it. Right. So they're part of the pilot program, but in general, we don't know how big that's going to be receptive from that kind of group of stratas, but it's there, right? If they hear about it and they gain some interest, then it's basically great for them to come try it out, and they don't have to pay too much to take it on long term,
This
right?
is a good time for us to tie it back into Property Flute itself because you
Yeah.
guys have core capabilities on meeting management as well. Can you describe that?
Yeah, so we haven't like we have that main part of the business that we started out with, which was voting solutions. And originally, we actually designed it to be self-serve, but we found that people don't run meetings often enough, and there's actually a really finesse and workflow that you just can't necessarily bake into the software because the software has to be generic enough to allow people to be flexible, right?
Right.
And you kind of need to know how to run a meeting. So we needed to provide flexibility, but with that flexibility means that people need to have training, right? They need to understand how to use the software and how meetings are procedurally supposed to be run. So they can make mistakes using it on their own. And we ended up, pivoting the business early on into a managed service. So we're service providers that help run the AGM and SGMs for the stratas, and we use our custom tailored software to do that, right? So people can vote online, in person, or hybrid meetings using voting solutions to track everything at those meetings, right? So we took some of those concepts and we have blended it into some aspects of our council meeting module and agenda builder here in the platform, and took a lot of feedback that we've seen from those clients to be able to design features that may work best for the stratas. And then we also have provided Vizoa members because we're pretty passionate about helping out the communities, and we're largely engaged with Vizoa. But we wanted to provide members, people that are signed up for a Vizoa membership, right? The stratas that have Vizoa memberships, to get nice resources to help them out. We said, we'll give those members a little perk too. So if they sign up and use our platform, and they will get an extra few gigabytes there in storage bonus. So if they have quite a few documents, then they get that perk for free just for being a Vizoa member. They just have to sign up for their Vizoa membership, show us some proof, and we'll give them that perk.
All right. And they can check it out by going to propertyflute.ca. And I see that you've offered a number for them to reach you at as well so that they can learn more.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, we're just like we actually haven't launched the pilot beyond just the private stratas that have been using it that were clients of ours from the voting solution prior. So we haven't put it publicly out there. This month, we're going to be launching that, so we'll be on the site, but it's not there right now, and that's why you can rather reach out to the email or to the phone number, and we can talk about it and try and get your strata onboarded if you're interested in such a management solution.
Fantastic. Well, it's going to be good to see some more of these solutions coming to market. Hopefully, can let more of these, well, 30 something thousand strata
Yeah.
corporations keep themselves organized. Certainly, a lot of communities out there that could use a bit of help in this area, and great to see
Yes.
you guys evolving to cater to that.
Yeah. Thank you so much again for having us on the show. It's great. It's great to be
Thanks,
here.
Ryan. Yeah, we'll chat again soon.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.